In a distant corner of the galaxy, far beyond what humans could see with their telescopes, there was an assembly hall that shimmered like liquid gold under the glow of twin suns. It wasn't just any hall. It was where decisions were made that affected entire civilizations. This was the meeting place of the Galactic Concord, a council composed of representatives from thousands of intelligent species scattered across countless star systems. For years, humanity had been on their radar, but not in a good way. The people of Earth weren't aware of it yet, but they were about to face judgment. A delegation from Earth had traveled light years to attend this session, hoping to prove themselves worthy members of the galactic community. They arrived wearing formal attire, carrying data tablets filled with evidence of their peaceful intentions. But as soon as they stepped into the chamber, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Every alien eye or whatever passed for eyes among these beings was fixed on them, and none of those stares seemed friendly. The room itself was massive, with towering ceilings adorned with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly as if alive. Rows upon rows of seats spiraled upward, each occupied by creatures so bizarre that they looked like something out of a dream or perhaps a nightmare. Some had scales instead of skin, others floated without legs, and a few emitted soft glows that illuminated their surroundings. At the center of it all stood a raised platform where the leaders of the council sat, their expressions unreadable behind masks or strange facial features. When the proceedings began, one representative after another rose to speak, each accusing humanity of some new transgression. One ambassador complained about how Earth's exploratory ships had trespassed into sacred space, desecrating ancient ruins on a moon revered by their kind. Another recounted how mining operations conducted by human corporations had destabilized the ecosystem of a neighboring planet, causing widespread famine among its native inhabitants. Yet another described an incident where Earth's military forces fired warning shots at a diplomatic vessel, mistaking it for hostile dot. Each accusation landed like a hammer blow, leaving the Earth delegation scrambling to respond. They tried explaining that many of these actions were mistakes born out of ignorance rather than malice. After all, humanity was still learning how to navigate the vastness of space. But no matter how earnestly they pleaded their case, the council remained unmoved. To them, humanity's rapid technological growth and unpredictable behavior made it a ticking time bomb that needed to be defused before it caused irreparable harm. Then came the moment everyone had been dreading. A towering figure with iridescent wings unfolded itself from its seat and addressed the assembly. Its voice resonated through the chamber, deep and commanding, sending shivers down the spines of even the most stoic delegates. "We have tolerated your presence for too long," it declared, its words translated instantly into every language present. "Your reckless expansion, your disregard for laws both written and unwritten, your inability to control your own impulses, all of this proves one thing. You are a collective danger to all sentient life." The declaration hit like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by murmurs of agreement. Even some members who had initially seemed sympathetic now nodded solemnly, as if resigning themselves to the inevitable. The Earth delegation froze, their faces pale with shock. They had known the stakes were high, but they hadn't expected outright condemnation. Back on Earth, news of the council's verdict spread like wildfire. Screens flickered to life in homes, offices, and public squares, broadcasting the damning speech to billions. Reactions varied wildly. In some places, protests erupted, with crowds chanting slogans demanding justice and respect. Elsewhere, fear took hold, prompting panicked stockpiling of supplies and whispered conversations about what might come next. Governments convened emergency meetings, debating whether to retaliate, negotiate, or simply prepare for the worst. But beneath the surface, cracks began to form. Not everyone agreed on how to respond. Some argued that humanity should humble itself, apologized profusely, and promised to change its ways. Others insisted that backing down would only embolden the Council, advocating instead for a show of force to demonstrate Earth's strength. These disagreements spilled over into the media, fueling heated debates that divided families, friends, and nations. Amidst the chaos, rumors started circulating, whispers of secret plans within the Council to neutralize the human threat once and for all. Intelligence reports suggested that fleets from several alien species were mobilizing near Earth-controlled territories. Satellites captured images of massive ships gathering at the edge of the solar system, their engines glowing ominously against the blackness of space. As days turned into weeks, tension mounted. People watched the skies nervously, wondering when or if the invasion would begin. Military bases went on high alert, while scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures using whatever scraps of alien technology they'd managed to salvage from past encounters. Yet despite their best efforts, uncertainty loomed large. Would humanity rise to meet this challenge, or would it crumble under the weight of its own divisions? And then, just when hope seemed lost, something remarkable happened. A young activist emerged from the shadows, someone who had spent years fighting for causes no one else cared about. With fiery speeches and bold actions, they rallied ordinary citizens to take a stand, not just against the Council, but against the fear and mistrust that threatened to tear humanity apart. Their message was simple yet powerful. If we let them divide us, we're finished. But if we unite, we can prove them wrong. It was a spark in the darkness, a glimmer of possibility amidst despair. Whether it would be enough remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Humanity was standing on the precipice of destiny, and the choices made in the coming days would shape its future forever. The news of the Galactic Concord's declaration spread like wildfire across Earth, igniting a storm of emotions that tore through cities, towns, and villages. People gathered around screens in living rooms, cafes, and public squares, their faces reflecting a mix of disbelief, anger, and fear. The message was clear. Humanity was being labeled a threat, and unless something changed, the consequences would be catastrophic. But instead of bringing people together, the announcement deepened the cracks that already existed within society. In one corner of the world, government leaders huddled in secure bunkers, debating what to do next. Some argued for diplomacy, believing that humanity could still salvage its reputation by apologizing and promising to play by the rules. Others pushed for a more aggressive stance, insisting that showing weakness would only invite further aggression from the Council. These arguments grew heated, with tempers flaring as each side dug in its heels. Meanwhile, military commanders quietly prepared for the worst, moving troops into strategic positions and stockpiling weapons. The sense of urgency was palpable, but so was the lack of direction. On the streets, ordinary citizens weren't waiting for their leaders to make up their minds. In neighborhoods around the globe, grassroots movements began to take shape. People who had never been politically active before suddenly found themselves organizing rallies, distributing flyers, and using social media to spread messages of resistance. One particularly passionate voice emerged from this chaos. A former scientist turned activist who had spent years studying alien cultures and advocating for peaceful coexistence. This individual stepped forward not as a politician or a celebrity, but as someone who genuinely believed in humanity's potential to rise above its flaws. Their speeches resonated deeply with audiences. Standing on makeshift stages in parks and town squares, they spoke with raw emotion about the importance of unity. "Look at us," they said, gesturing to the diverse crowds that had gathered. "We come from different places, speak different languages, and follow different beliefs. But right now, none of that matters. What matters is that we're all human. If we let them see us divided, we lose. But if we stand together, we can show them what we're truly capable of." These words struck a chord, inspiring people to set aside their differences, at least for the moment. Volunteers poured into community centers, offering whatever skills they had to contribute to the cause. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of hope and resilience. Musicians composed songs that became anthems of defiance. Even children got involved, drawing pictures of Earth surrounded by stars and handing them out to passers-by. For the first time in a long while, it felt like humanity was working toward a common goal. Behind the scenes, however, the situation was far from stable. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly in secret labs, trying to develop technologies that could level the playing field against the advanced weaponry of the Galactic Concord. Using fragments of alien tech recovered from past encounters, they reverse-engineered devices that seemed straight out of science fiction: energy shields, plasma cannons, and even rudimentary cloaking systems. Progress was slow, though, hampered by limited resources and constant pressure to deliver results quickly. Complicating matters further, suspicion began to creep into the ranks. Whispers of sabotage circulated after several key projects were delayed or derailed by mysterious malfunctions. Was it an inside job? Had someone been bribed or coerced by the Council to undermine humanity's efforts? Trust eroded rapidly, leading to accusations and finger-pointing among colleagues who had once worked side by side. Morale plummeted, and some team members quit altogether, unable to handle the stress. Despite these challenges, small victories kept spirits alive. In one instance, a group of hackers managed to infiltrate the communication networks of an alien reconnaissance vessel patrolling near Earth's orbit. By decoding encrypted transmissions, they uncovered valuable intel about the Council's plans, including details about troop movements and supply routes. This information proved crucial in helping Earth's forces anticipate potential attacks and prepare accordingly. As days turned into weeks, the tension reached a boiling point. Reports confirmed that enemy fleets were closing in, their massive ships blotting out the light of distant stars. Panic gripped the planet as people realized that war was no longer a hypothetical scenario. It was imminent. Families packed up their belongings and fled to rural areas, hoping to escape the destruction that seemed inevitable. Stores ran out of essentials as shelves were emptied by frantic shoppers. The airwaves buzzed with conflicting advice. Stay indoors. Head for the hills. Trust the government. Don't trust the government. Yet amidst the chaos, there were moments of unexpected beauty. Strangers helped each other carry heavy loads or shared food with those in need. Neighbors formed watch groups to protect their communities from looters. And in quiet corners, people prayed not just to gods, but to whatever higher power they believed might listen. Hope, fragile though it was, refused to die. By the end of this chapter, humanity stood at a crossroads. Two critical decisions loomed large: whether to unite fully or remain fractured, and whether the hastily assembled defenses would hold up against the impending assault. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If humanity failed to come together, it risked annihilation. But if it succeeded, it might just have a fighting chance to prove the Council wrong. As the sun set on another anxious day, casting long shadows over empty streets, the question lingered in everyone's mind. Could humanity rise to the occasion? Or would its divisions ultimately seal its fate? Only time would tell. The first strike came without warning, shattering the fragile calm that had settled over Earth. It was early morning in many parts of the world, when the skies darkened, not with clouds, but with the ominous silhouettes of alien ships descending through the atmosphere. Their hulls gleamed like polished obsidian, reflecting flashes of destruction as they unleashed their weapons on cities below. Explosions lit up the horizon, sending shockwaves rippling across landscapes and reducing entire neighborhoods to rubble in seconds. Panic erupted instantly. Streets that had been bustling with life just moments earlier turned into chaotic mazes of fleeing humanity. Cars screeched to a halt, abandoned as drivers ran for cover. Parents clutched their children tightly, shielding them from falling debris. The air was filled with screams, sirens, and the deafening roar of collapsing buildings. For millions, survival became the only thought in their minds. But even in the face of such overwhelming force, humanity refused to surrender. In the ruins of shattered cities, small groups of fighters banded together, determined to resist. They were ordinary people, shopkeepers, teachers, mechanics, who had never imagined themselves taking up arms. Yet here they were, armed with whatever weapons they could find. Makeshift guns cobbled together from scrap metal, repurposed farming tools, and even kitchen knives tied to sticks. Against an enemy wielding advanced technology, these crude weapons seemed laughably inadequate. But desperation bred ingenuity, and humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt. One group, hiding in the remains of an old factory, devised a daring plan. Using scavenged materials, they rigged a network of tripwires and explosives along the perimeter of their makeshift base. When a squad of alien drones swept through the area, searching for survivors, the traps sprang into action. Explosions erupted in quick succession, sending shards of metal flying in all directions. Several drones crashed to the ground, sparking cheers from the defenders. It was a minor victory, but it proved something important. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. Elsewhere, guerrilla tactics began to take shape. Small teams moved swiftly through urban wastelands, striking at enemy supply lines and communication hubs before vanishing into the shadows. One particularly bold operation targeted a convoy transporting alien troops. A former soldier who had once fought in Earth's own wars led the charge, guiding his team through underground tunnels to ambush the convoy from behind. The attack caught the aliens off guard, forcing them to retreat and leaving behind crates of valuable equipment that the humans quickly claimed for themselves. Technology played a crucial role in leveling the playing field. Back in secret labs, engineers worked around the clock to refine the experimental weapons they had been developing. Plasma rifles, energy shields, and cloaking devices once dismissed as pipe dreams began rolling off assembly lines in limited numbers. These innovations gave human fighters a fighting chance against the superior firepower of the invaders. In one memorable battle, a young engineer modified civilian drones to carry payloads of explosives, turning them into deadly swarm weapons that overwhelmed an alien patrol. Yet for every triumph, there was a cost. Entire regions were reduced to ash, their populations displaced or wiped out entirely. Hospitals overflowed with wounded soldiers and civilians, many suffering injuries that doctors struggled to treat with dwindling supplies. Food shortages became widespread as supply chains collapsed under the weight of constant attacks. And then there were the losses, the friends, family members, and comrades who didn't make it. Each death left a void, a reminder of what was at stake. Amidst the carnage, however, a surprising revelation emerged. Intelligence gathered from intercepted transmissions revealed that not all alien species supported the Council's decision to invade Earth. Some factions viewed the attack as unjustified aggression, driven more by fear than logic. Secret messages began filtering in from these dissenters, offering hints of potential alliances. One message, decoded late at night by a team of linguists, contained coordinates for a hidden rendezvous point where sympathetic aliens promised to share critical information about the invaders' weaknesses. This discovery sparked hope among Earth's leaders. If they could forge alliances with these rogue factions, it might tip the scales in humanity's favor. But trust was hard to come by in wartime, and skepticism ran high. What if this was a trap? Could they afford to take the risk? After heated debates, a decision was made to send a small delegation to investigate. The mission was fraught with danger, requiring the team to navigate hostile territory while avoiding detection. But the stakes were too high to ignore. As the days dragged on, humanity teetered on the brink of collapse. Cities burned, resources dwindled, and morale plummeted. Yet amidst the despair, glimmers of unity began to shine through. Communities that had once been divided by politics, religion, or geography now stood shoulder to shoulder, sharing what little they had to keep each other alive. Strangers became allies, united by a common purpose: survival. In one poignant moment, a group of farmers in a remote village pooled their remaining crops to feed refugees fleeing the front lines. "We may not have much," one of them said as he handed out sacks of grain, "but we'll share what we do have." His words echoed far beyond his tiny community, inspiring others to follow suit. Acts of kindness like this reminded people of what it meant to be human, to care for one another. Even in the darkest times. By the end of this chapter, humanity's resilience had become undeniable. Though battered and bruised, it refused to break. The war was far from over, and the road ahead promised to be long and brutal. But for the first time, there was a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity might stand a chance. All it needed was to hold on a little longer, to keep fighting, keep adapting, and keep believing in itself. And so, as the sun rose over a scarred and smoking planet, the question lingered: could humanity rise above its divisions and prove the Council wrong? Or would the weight of its own flaws drag it down into oblivion? Only time would tell. The turning point came when humanity realized it had no choice but to unite or perish. For weeks, the war had raged on, leaving Earth scarred and its people exhausted. Cities lay in ruins, fields were scorched, and millions had been displaced. The divisions that had plagued humanity for so long, political rivalries, cultural differences, economic disparities, now seemed trivial in the face of extinction. It was clear that if humanity wanted to survive, it needed to act as one. Leaders from every corner of the globe finally set aside their disagreements and convened an emergency summit. Held in a secure underground facility, the meeting brought together representatives from nations large and small, rich and poor. For hours, they argued, debated, and negotiated, each side pushing for its own interests. But eventually, something remarkable happened. They began to listen to one another. Slowly, painfully, they hammered out a plan. A global coalition was formed, pooling resources, sharing intelligence, and coordinating strategies. For the first time in history, Earth spoke with a single voice. This newfound unity wasn't just limited to governments. Ordinary citizens rallied behind the cause, volunteering in droves to support the war effort. Factories that once produced cars and appliances were repurposed to churn out weapons, medical supplies, and protective gear. Farmers donated food to feed soldiers and refugees alike. Artists painted murals of hope on bombed-out walls, while musicians composed songs that became rallying cries for the resistance. Even children contributed, collecting scrap metal to be melted down and turned into tools of defense. At the heart of this movement was a spirit of innovation. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, driven by desperation and determination. Using scraps of alien technology salvaged from previous battles, they developed revolutionary weapons capable of countering the invaders' superior firepower. One breakthrough came when a team of researchers figured out how to harness electromagnetic pulses to disable enemy ships temporarily. Another group created portable energy shields that could protect troops during ground assaults. These advancements gave humanity a fighting chance, though they knew it wouldn't be enough unless they struck a decisive blow. That's when the idea for a daring mission took shape. Intelligence reports indicated that the invaders' flagship, a massive vessel serving as both command center and symbol of dominance, was vulnerable. If humanity could cripple it, they might disrupt the entire invasion force. The challenge was immense. The ship was heavily guarded and located deep within enemy territory. But the potential payoff was worth the risk. A diverse team of volunteers was assembled for the mission. They came from all walks of life, former soldiers, engineers, hackers, and even civilians who had never held a weapon before. What united them was their shared belief that failure was not an option. Before departing, they trained rigorously, learning how to operate the new technologies and coordinate their movements seamlessly. Trust grew among them, forged in the crucible of preparation and mutual reliance. The night of the mission arrived, cloaked in darkness and tension. The team launched from a hidden base aboard a modified spacecraft designed to evade detection. As they approached the flagship, hearts pounded in unison. Every member of the crew understood the stakes. If they succeeded, they could turn the tide of the war. If they failed, their sacrifice would likely go unnoticed. Reaching the flagship required navigating through layers of defenses, including swarms of drones and automated turrets. The pilot maneuvered the craft with precision, dodging attacks while deploying decoys to confuse the enemy. When they finally reached the hull, the team deployed magnetic clamps to anchor themselves before cutting through the thick metal exterior. Sparks flew as they breached the ship, slipping inside undetected. Inside, chaos reigned. The flagship was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, patrolled by alien guards armed with lethal weapons. Moving silently, the team split into smaller groups, each tasked with disabling key systems. One group targeted the ship's power core, planting explosives timed to detonate after they escaped. Another infiltrated the communications hub, broadcasting a message to the rest of the fleet. We are not your enemy. Humanity seeks peace, not destruction. But the mission came at a cost. Along the way, members of the team made unimaginable sacrifices. Some stayed behind to hold off pursuing enemies, buying time for their comrades to complete their objectives. Others fell victim to traps or ambushed, their bodies left behind as the survivors pressed on. Each loss weighed heavily on those who remained, fueling their resolve to see the mission through. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the explosives detonated. The flagship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as critical systems failed. Outside, the rest of the alien fleet scrambled to respond, thrown into disarray by the sudden loss of leadership. The team barely escaped, their ship battered but intact as they raced back toward Earth. News of the victory spread quickly, igniting celebrations across the planet. For the first time since the war began, there was a sense of hope. Humanity had proven that it could strike back, that it was more than just a collection of divided factions. The success of the mission didn't end the war, but it marked a turning point. The invaders, shaken by the loss of their flagship, began to question whether conquering Earth was worth the cost. Yet amidst the jubilation, there was also mourning. The faces of those who had given their lives haunted the living, reminders of the price paid for survival. Memorials sprang up in cities and towns, honoring the fallen with simple plaques bearing messages of gratitude. People gathered to pay their respects, lighting candles and leaving flowers. In those quiet moments, humanity reflected on what it meant to fight not just for land or resources, but for the right to exist. As Earth began to rebuild, lessons emerged from the ashes. The war had exposed humanity's flaws, but it had also revealed its strengths. People learned that unity wasn't about erasing differences. It was about embracing them, recognizing that diversity was a source of power rather than division. They saw that courage didn't always look like charging into battle. It could also mean standing firm in the face of fear, refusing to give up even when the odds seemed insurmountable. By the end of this chapter, humanity stood transformed. Though the scars of war ran deep, they served as reminders of resilience. The road ahead would still be difficult, filled with challenges both old and new. But for the first time, humanity faced those challenges together, bound by a shared purpose and a renewed sense of identity. And so, as the sun rose over a battered yet hopeful world, the question lingered: could humanity maintain this unity? Or would old divisions resurface once the immediate threat passed? Only time would tell. But for now, there was hope, a fragile, flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. The war was over, but its echoes lingered long after the last alien ship had retreated from Earth's skies. The planet bore the scars of battle cities reduced to rubble, landscapes scarred by craters, and oceans tainted with debris. Yet amidst the devastation, something extraordinary had emerged. Humanity, battered and bruised, stood united in a way it never had before. The divisions that once defined nations, cultures, and ideologies seemed insignificant now, overshadowed by the shared struggle for survival. In the aftermath, Earth began the painstaking process of rebuilding. Governments worked together, pooling resources and expertise to restore what had been lost. Factories reopened, not just to produce weapons this time, but to create tools, materials, and machines needed to reconstruct homes, schools, and hospitals. Farmers tilled fields that had lain fallow during the war, planting seeds with renewed hope. Communities came together to clear away rubble, piece by piece, until streets once again became passable. It was slow, grueling work, but every brick laid and every tree planted felt like a step toward healing. But the changes went deeper than infrastructure. People carried themselves differently now, their eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and resolve. Conversations shifted from debates about who was to blame to discussions about how to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. Schools introduced new curriculums focused on interstellar diplomacy and conflict resolution, teaching children the importance of understanding others, even those vastly different from themselves. Museums dedicated exhibits to the war, not to glorify it, but to remind future generations of the cost of division and the value of unity. Monuments sprang up across the globe, honoring those who had sacrificed everything. In one city, a towering statue depicted a human figure reaching skyward, symbolizing resilience and aspiration. At its base, an inscription read, "We fell. We rose, we endured." Nearby, plaques listed the names of soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens who had given their lives to protect Earth. Families visited these memorials, laying flowers and sharing stories of loved ones they had lost. These acts of remembrance weren't just about grief. They were about gratitude, acknowledging the courage it took to stand against overwhelming odds. Diplomacy became a priority as humanity sought to repair its relationship with the rest of the galaxy. Delegations traveled to distant worlds, meeting with representatives of species that had once viewed Earth with suspicion or outright hostility. These encounters were awkward at first, marked by tense silences and cautious exchanges. But gradually, trust began to form. Stories of humanity's ingenuity and determination spread, earning respect from even the most skeptical corners of the universe. Some alien civilizations offered aid, sending supplies and expertise to help Earth recover. Others extended invitations to join interstellar alliances, recognizing that humanity's unique perspective could enrich the galactic community. One particularly poignant moment occurred when a delegation from the Galactic Concord arrived on Earth. Gone were the accusatory tones and dismissive attitudes of the past. Instead, the council members expressed regret for their hasty judgment and acknowledged humanity's growth since the war. They admitted that labeling Earth as a threat had been premature, born out of fear rather than fact. While the apology didn't erase the pain of the conflict, it signaled a willingness to move forward to build bridges instead of walls. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal, though normal now meant something entirely different. People approached their days with a heightened awareness of fragility and interconnectedness. Neighbors checked in on one another more often, offering help without being asked. Artists created works inspired by themes of unity and renewal, capturing both the darkness of the war and the light that followed. Musicians composed symphonies that blended traditional instruments with sounds mimicking the hum of alien engines, celebrating the blending of cultures. Children played games that mirrored the battles they had heard about from their parents. But these games always ended with laughter and hugs, not tears. Elders gathered around fires at night, telling stories of heroism and sacrifice, ensuring that the lessons of the war would never be forgotten. And everywhere, there was talk of the future, not just for Earth, but for humanity's place among the stars. Scientists and explorers turned their attention outward once more, eager to chart unexplored regions of space. This time, however, they did so with humility and caution, mindful of the mistakes that had nearly led to humanity's downfall. Ships launched into the cosmos carried messages of peace, along with offers to collaborate on scientific endeavors and cultural exchanges. Humanity no longer saw itself as separate from the galaxy. It recognized that it was part of something much larger, a tapestry woven from countless threads, each contributing its own color and texture. Yet perhaps the most profound change was internal. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger, not because it had perfected itself, but because it had embraced imperfection. People understood now that strength wasn't about being flawless. It was about learning from failures, supporting one another through hardships, and striving to do better. The war had stripped away pretenses, forcing individuals to confront their fears, doubts, and vulnerabilities. What remained was raw, authentic humanity, flawed yet beautiful, fragile yet resilient. As years passed, Earth transformed into a beacon of hope for other civilizations. Its story served as a reminder that even the most fractured societies could find common ground when faced with a shared challenge. Leaders from across the galaxy visited Earth to study its journey, hoping to apply its lessons to their own worlds. Humanity, once dismissed as reckless and dangerous, became a symbol of perseverance and potential. On a quiet evening, decades after the war, an elderly man sat on a hill overlooking a rebuilt city. Lights twinkled below, casting a warm glow against the darkening sky. He held a small device in his hand, an artifact salvaged from the wreckage of an alien ship. Turning it over, he marveled at how far humanity had come since those desperate days. Behind him, a child ran up, breathless with excitement. "Grandpa," the child said, pointing at the stars, "will we ever go there again?" The old man smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Of course we will," he replied. "But this time, we'll go as one." And as the two gazed upward, the vast expanse of space stretched before them, a reminder of challenges yet to come, but also of possibilities waiting to be discovered. Humanity had proven it could endure, adapt, and unite. Whatever lay ahead, it would face it together.